first project that we did was we used the KVET grant. The project was called the Adventurers Guild Level 2. It's a continuation of one that we did last year, and it's using Dungeons and Dragons to inspire literacy among students. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club at Breathitt High School, and this is what we use the funding in order to purchase gaming books, dice, cards, materials, just things to make the game a lot more fun for the kids. The problem that we have is that students generally hate to read. And this is just very rarely do I find a student that really enjoys reading. Most students report that they hate reading. They don't read for pleasure. It's not very common. They most regard reading, writing, and other English skills as to be something boring. And they don't look forward to practicing those skills in any way. Many also lack face-to-face social interactions beyond school, well, especially now, but I mean, in general, even before this all happened, a lot of them were going home and didn't have a lot of friends beyond screen time. Most games they play are limited to video games and lack of face-to-face social dimension. And we feel that D&D was one great way to deal with that. Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy role-playing game, and there's currently a body of research that's showing the benefits of D&D in the classroom, after school, and in therapy. In particular, a freshman English teacher at a Title I high school in Houston named Cade Wells has created an entire Common Core curriculum using Dungeons & Dragons, and he saw an increase of 10% on standardized test scores of those students who took his course. His findings were presented to the World Literary Conference in Austria in 2017, and other teachers have followed suit with this. And there's a website that I've been participating in called Teaching with D&D, in which teachers share information. We use it as kind of an information clearinghouse to talk about our experience using it in the classroom and using it in after-school clubs. And so it's been very effective. There's a lot of research coming out. A lot of new papers have been written recently about how it fulfills social needs that aren't being fulfilled elsewhere, which has been pretty interesting. The D&D club began about 2 years ago. When I started as an English teacher. Well, actually it's going on 3 years now, if starting in the summer. It became increasingly popular with our membership. We have about 25 members now. We meet after school. We have two different weekly games that I run, and then we have 2 games that students run. So we have a lot of participation going on with students. The students are creating their own worlds. I also run a Dungeon Masters workshop in which students create their own worlds, which they design based on, they have different themes that guide their campaigns. They create adventures, they create the characters and the stories. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of reading, and they love it, and it's going really, really well. The biggest problems that we've been lacking are handbooks and manuals that we need to properly run the game. In the past, I was able to get several, and now we're able to get even more. We're also able to purchase, well, we'll go through it here. We were able to purchase a substantial library of handbooks, source books, and manuals totaling more than 30 books. We've also added several supplements, making gameplay easier and more fun for club members. This year, we got a lot of cards, spell cards, and magic item cards, and monster cards, things that just make the game a lot easier so that they don't have to spend all the time thumbing through the book trying to figure out what spell they're going to cast. They'll have the stuff right in front of them with the information on the cards, and they'll be able to do it that way. These books include not only basic rule handbooks, such as players' handbooks, DM's guides, and monster manuals, but also source books containing complete campaign stories for them to read and run for their classmates. The ones we got last year, they've been using. I got both games that they're running them out of a book. So they're spending a lot of time going over that material and preparing for the game. They've been enthusiastically making use of the library, checking books out, and making use of them both in the club and in their home games, because you have to understand they're also running at home. They get tired of me running the show all the time, so they go and run it at home, which I actively encourage. I really want them to do that. My games at school can sometimes be a little restrictive, and so they get it more of a free hand to do it at home. They can run it with whatever kind of races and classes and creatures they want to run, and any kind of story they want to run, they can do it. So they've been having a lot of fun with that. This has obviously led to a substantial increase in their reading and their effectiveness in using handbooks, indices, forms, filling out character sheets, for example, is like filling out a job application. And they will just fill out character sheets for fun. They'll make new characters just for fun. Now, many of our club members are continuing to play online through a website called Roll20 during the COVID-19 quarantine. Many of them checked out books before we left. So they're sitting at home right now with D&D books, and we've been playing online, much like this format here. We'll have little screens with our faces, and we have a Roll20 allows us to roll dice and use maps and stuff in the game. So we're still playing. We're still having a good time with it. So that's been going really well. This is a sample of all the books that we've gotten. And as far as the data goes, we have had tangible results. I've been collecting student reading scores from MAP and ACT standardized testing for the past 3 years now. In every case, members of the club have shown a steady and sometimes dramatic increase in their reading scores. We have seen dramatic improvements for some students in terms of behavior and well-being. The group has become very important to them. And so many of them that have troubled home lives, the group has become kind of a place of stability for them, and a place where they found acceptance, and a place where they want to go. There's students that sometimes they don't want to go home, and they like being able to stay and play until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Qualitatively, students have reported an increased enjoyment of reading and writing in the context of the game, as well as finding a sense of camaraderie and community with their fellow gamers. Many of the players have also turned out to be actors in our theater program. I've recruited a few actors that never thought they would have been interested in acting, and they're now acting, and they're learned about improv acting and character development through the game. So now they've joined our theater class. It's really interesting. People I would never expect. I've got a football player, a senior football player, who's a D&D player, and he's now he's an improv actor, and he is one of the best improv actors we have, and I got him through D&D. So it was just totally unexpected. I've also been able to use participation in online games as a means to motivate NTI participation for getting their work turned in. Currently during the quarantine, I've been encouraging members to turn their assignments in as a condition to playing games on Roll20. So if they want to play D&D with me, they're going to have to get their work turned in. And I'll check the daily. We have a participation matrix at Breathitt High School, and I can see if they've been turning work in. Even if they're not in my class, I can still see that they've been turning work in. If they have, they're good to play. If they're not, they can't play. And that's really worked. I've had students that weren't doing anything, and as soon as I dropped that bomb, I started getting work in by the loads. So they're getting it done now. So it's worked. So, and related note, some students have told me too that we used to have our games on Mondays and Tuesdays. And students have told me that sometimes the only reason they came to school on Monday and Tuesday was so they could play, because I won't let them play unless they come to school. Like, they can't come after school to play. They have to. It's like any other extracurricular activity. You have to be there at school. So they'll come to school on Monday even if they don't feel like it, because they want to play. And this is just a scene from one of our games. It gets a little messy. That's some of the stuff we've purchased. And that's it.